NATO, and the White House is watching escalating tensions in Eastern Europe after another Russian drone breached NATO airspace over the weekend. Fighter jets were scrambled in Romania on Saturday in response to that incursion. It was the second time in less than a week Russia has breached NATO airspace. The other happened in Poland, where they reported more than a dozen drones flying over their country, putting NATO and the EU on edge. Let's get out to correspondent Robert Sherman. He is live for us in Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv. So, Robert, leaders in Europe are reacting to this now latest incident.
As you can imagine, Nichole, leadership in Romania not happy about this after their airspace was breached, saying that it threatens to destabilize the whole region. This, as NATO is still reeling from this incident in Poland, in which all these Russian drones entered Polish airspace, causing NATO to fire their first shot since the war in Ukraine broke out. It is a tense moment. People here view it as being a watershed moment here in Eastern Europe, with President Trump saying he's ready to go on upping the sanctions on Russia if Europe, in turn, chooses to wean off of its reliance on Russian oil. Here's the president.
Well, I'm ready to move ahead, but they have to do it. I think they will. But right now they're talking and they're not doing. Look, they're buying oil from Russia. We're not buying oil from Russia. They're buying a lot of oil from Russia. That's not the deal.
But the Kremlin today is pointing the finger at NATO as the cause of all of these tensions. Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson for the Kremlin, saying NATO is providing direct and indirect support to the Kyiv regime. It can be said with absolute certainty that NATO is fighting against Russia. Still, you've heard both the Kremlin and the White House saying they'd like to keep the channels of communication open between both of these sides. But at this juncture, there are no plans for a bilateral or trilateral meeting between Russia, Ukraine, or the United States here. Nichole.
Well, in the meantime, Robert, the president is expected to be in Europe this week for a state visit with King Charles. What can we expect out of that?
Yeah, highly anticipated international trip for the president, as he'll be at Windsor Castle with King Charles. I'll also be meeting with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, later on in the week. That'll be taking place at Windsor Castle with the state visit there. As you can imagine, there's a lot of security on the ground in England and the United Kingdom as a whole. You could see police officers roaming the Thames in order to prepare for the possibility of the president arriving there, and in order to ensure that security remains top-notch in the UK. We do anticipate that the subject of Ukraine is going to come up at some point on this trip here, as this remains a top priority for all European nations in order to find a way to push Russia towards a ceasefire. Nichole.
All right, Robert Sherman, live for us there in Kyiv. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.